Welcome to Parenthood Bites, the podcast where we explore life as a parent in tech. I'm your host, Chow, and I have over 15 years of experience in tech, and I'm also currently working as a career coach. I'm the proud mother of 3 incredible boys. In each episode, we have an inspiring guest who will share their remarkable story. You'll find their wisdom and insights both relatable and enriching, because after all, we're all in this parenting journey together. So grab your favorite drink, get cozy, and let's dive into today's episode. Hi everyone, welcome to episode 65 of Parenthood Bites. We're here with Shivani Rao, who is an engineering manager and a mom working in the AI ML field and living in the Bay Area. She's passionate about reducing stress and finding more joy in work and life. Hi Shivani, how are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's a nice Friday afternoon. Do you have any plans for the weekend?
Yeah, it's the first weekend after, everyone is back to work. So catching up to work is a big item on the to-do list and getting some outdoor time with the daughter. My daughter's 3 years old.
Oh, that's a fun age, 3 years old. Is she just running around everywhere and talking a lot now?
Yes, very, very, very much. She's talking a lot. She's very opinionated. She loves to sing. She's crazy about Frozen. Yeah, so very cute age. So I'm Anna in the house. She's Elsa, and my husband is Christoph. She will not respond unless we call her Elsa.
Oh, that's so cute. Does she have a little Elsa dress too?
Yes, she has an Elsa dress. She has 2 Anna dolls. She has Frozen pajamas. Her bike helmet is Frozen theme. And so she's totally obsessed with Frozen.
I love that. And I must tell you, I'm pretty envious of that because I have 3 boys. And when Frozen came out, I was like, I love Frozen. And my kids were like, no, mom, that's for girls. We don't want to watch it. And I love the song. I love, the dress, everything. And I was like, I want to play the song. And they're like, no, mom, we don't want to hear it. And so I hear about your daughters singing it, dressing up. That's so adorable. You must have a lot of pictures of that.
Yes, definitely. It's very cute age.
I love that. So I like to start by asking, what brought you to a career in tech?
It's been a very long road in tech now. I think I was always good at math. Growing up, I loved puzzles, I loved logic. So needless to say, computer science was a very natural fit. Coding was a lot of fun. In my undergrad days, we didn't have a computer at home, so I would find myself going to the library to access the computer there and code up programs and do little things in India in a local community college, so to speak, and without much access or anything. And that was the beginning of my love relationship. I guess there's a little bit hate since then because computers don't work well. I mean, sometimes code doesn't work very well, but it's definitely been a very long journey of finding what I really love to do. In the final year of my undergrad, I took a course called Computer Vision. It was a very early course. This was 2003. There was no instructors at all, so it was completely self-taught. Luckily, I had a computer at home by then, and I self-taught myself a lot of concepts from computer vision. I ended up doing my master's in computer vision and fell in love with the whole field of computer vision, which has then evolved into the field of AI and machine learning. So it's been almost 22 years since that day that I've been doing this. I'm still fascinated by this field.
That's so neat. And it keeps evolving, right? So you keep learning new things all the time.
Exactly.
That's very cool. And so right now, you said you're an engineering manager. So you're an engineering manager for machine learning AI. Do you still do hands-on things as well?
I'm a machine learning engineering manager. This is my 4th year into management. I have a team of 10 to 12 people. And so at this size, it starts to get really hard to code myself.
Yeah.
And it would be actually wasteful and taking away time from, the kind of things I should be engaging with and being the multiplier. But I still read a lot of papers and tend to present those papers. And in that way, I'd stay technical or participate in design discussions, but I don't do hands-on anymore.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And that's kind of where I was at too. It was like, it just didn't make sense to be so hands-on anymore. But you mentioned being a multiplier. I love that because I love when I first learned about the concept of multiplier diminisher, I was like, oh my gosh, that made so much sense to me. So I love that, you mentioned that.
Absolutely.
So how many years have you been working in tech when you became a parent?
When I became a parent, this was about 3 years ago when I became a parent. At that point, I had been working in tech for about 10 years, I would say, because I got my PhD. So in the industry, I started working much later. I spent a long time in academia. I got my master's, then got my PhD, all from different places. So when you restart your PhD in a different university, it kind of sets back the clock. So my PhD was very long. So all of it together started working only end of December 2013. So about 9 or 10 years when I had my daughter.
And then you said you were a manager for 4 years, so you were already a manager when you became.
I had just become a manager. I had just become a manager. I became a manager around the time I became a mom. One of the decision making was to time it that way in a way. I had been an individual contributor for a while. And in 2017, when I was still in my early career at that point, because I had only been working for 4 years, I took this program called the Five Dynamics Training, which evaluates whether you are a natural or you have a deliberate energy along five dynamics, which is explore, excite, examine, execute, and evaluate. So these are the five stages of any project, and which part feels natural to you and which part feels deliberate. So in that five dynamics training, I got that explore and excite is very natural for me and execute is deliberate. So I'll still get it done, but I will feel exhausted at the end of the day as opposed to exhilarated that I got it done. And so that indicated something to me that I'm a manager profile. So typically you will find manager profile having excite and explore very, very natural. Those who are software engineer or an individual contributor track, they will have execute as a natural. So all day you struggle with code dependencies, and then you resolve the codependency and you don't feel exhausted, you feel exhilarated at the end of the day. And so that's a very typical individual contributor profile, and my husband is like that. I know some people who are extremely good at what they do and they are like that, they're individual contributors. So it depends on, and someone is very good at examining. Data scientist is a very typical profession for them, that's more natural, that doesn't exhaust them because all day they do examination of data and other things and they don't feel exhausted. So that was a very early indicator to me. Throughout my time as an individual contributor and as a researcher, I was also very passionate about supporting women. So I was volunteering outside a lot of outreach events, and I was also a co-chair of the AI ML track at the Grace Hopper, which is a very big conference for women in tech for AI ML and data science. And so I was doing a lot of service work for women in tech, and I was reaching a lot of junior women through that and mentoring them. And so my name was getting thrown around a lot for a manager role. And I kept saying no. And then finally, when I got married and I was expecting my baby, we had this conversation, and my husband was like, you haven't even tried it to just keep saying no. How about you just say you want and then see what happens? And so in March 2021, I began my manager journey. So little under 4 years now. And November 2021 is when my daughter was born.
That's such a fascinating journey. And so since you said yes to management, are you enjoying it? Do you feel like it matches kind of what you determined from the profile from the test?
Yeah, being a manager has really been, a very different journey than what I'd expected. It's a emotional growth of different dimension, like a whole different proportion than as an individual contributor. The technical growth is one piece, but as a manager, the growth that you experience emotionally, strategically, and professionally as a result is also very, very, I think the proportion is very big. Like magnitude cannot even be compared. On one hand, it's been very wonderful to get that business exposure to problems, not just thinking through my own model and how the model is doing really well or is the code leverageable and going on and on about that, versus like thinking from a holistic perspective about driving alignment between people, supporting engineers, being that positive supporting person for everybody that I work with, as opposed to, having my own agenda, which is a very technical individual contributor perspective versus a manager perspective. So it's taken a lot for me. The growth has been definitely valuable, but also has been painful, I would say. It's hard to look in the mirror and see, oh my God, I suck at this. So that has also been a huge driver of, I'm become much more humble now about my abilities as a manager, as opposed to, being fully self-confident all the time to the point of maybe a little ignorant as an IC. So being a manager has definitely made me grow a lot. Now having a toddler who's 3 years old, I find a lot of parallels between management and parenting, which has also been really nice to connect those dots together. I think in terms of my abilities as a person, I fit the manager profile better even today. I'm very capable of handling 20 different things in the air, context switching. If I have to go down deep into one area, then I'm not able to then focus on being available for all the other areas. Like if I go deep, I can't be having a lot of breadth, and I'm good at handling the breadth. Even as a mom, I'm organized. I'm good at handling the different pieces of mom life as well, much more seamlessly than, let's say, the individual contributor profile, which is my husband. He's like, he'll do one thing very well, but it goes a little off script. He doesn't know what to do. He's a wonderful husband. He's amazing, but I think it's just the profile of the person. Like, it's just individual contributors are great at focusing on one thing and getting it done well, and managers are typically good at handling multiple threads, but not to that level of detail. And so my husband is really good at handling one or two threads of what we do at home and being really good at it. And I'm really good at the breadth and strategy and planning. And I drive a lot of energy from people. So even when there were days when my daughter was little, didn't sleep through the night, I'm also struggling to sleep, wake up and keep my day going. I have a one-on-one with the team member and I'm able to support them. It energizes me. I feel that I did something good today, as opposed to I resolved that dependency issue today, So I think my personality fits the manager better than an individual contributor. But the growth is definitely there, and growth doesn't come for free. There is definitely some painful moments in the growth that I'm experiencing almost every day as a manager. I always reflect, did I say that right? Did I do it right? Did I do a good job communicating the right way? Did I use any words that were, yeah, did I get the outcome I wanted? Did the message get delivered? Like there's a lot of that self-doubt about how am I driving this. Then there's also been this, the work also has been much harder. Like as a manager, I find my schedule much busier than an individual contributor because I'm in meetings, I'm context switching, I'm handling so many threads. Then there is the piece of, the changing environment. Like if there's reorgs or if there is difficult things happening at work or the difficult interaction, because everyone is coming from a stressed out place anyway in the Bay Area. And if you're not slept well, you're tired, then it creates exhaustion and emotional reactions within you that are not ideal. So really focusing on emotion regulation is very important. So the area of growth has been in those areas where I can grow. I can get better emotional regulation. I can handle anxieties better. I can handle distress that comes from the workplace better. Those are the areas that I've been working on, and that's going to be a long work in progress.
Yeah, and I think those are things that we're always going to keep working on, right? Because as a manager, you get problems from all different perspectives, all different areas. It's not as straightforward as like if you're coding, it's like, okay, it works. Maybe I can make it better, but it's more straightforward than people problems, project timelines, reorgs, things like that, right? All the things you need to manage, and you have so many balls in the air at one time. It's just a never ending, like,
Exactly.
constant thing of like, okay, let me not drop any balls. But that's the same thing as being a mom too, right? Because we have so many things. It's like, I hear you talking about, how you split some of the work with your husband, and we're the same way. I'm thinking about all these different things, and I just have my husband, okay, focus on this one thing. He does it really well, but he's
Yes.
got to focus on that one thing. And I'm like, okay, let me go get the laundry. Let me go get dinner ready. Let me go do this, right? Because we have that never ending task list that we need to juggle and prioritize.
Exactly.
So what was the parental leave like?
Yeah, I mean, I was at a company called LinkedIn, and it had 4 weeks of parental leave and up to 16 weeks. And 4 weeks before the baby arrived, I took 3 weeks of that 4 week. So I had total 19 weeks of leave. But I timed it in a way that would allow me to survive and keep a job in the Bay Area. Like if you take all of it at once, it's good as well. And some people also take part-time leave to work for about like X months, which was also provided. But I was a new manager. I was a manager for 6 months before I went on my maternity leave, so I didn't want to take out too much time. So when my daughter's sleep started to get a little better at 2 months, like her sleep started to be 5 hours at night at one stretch, which is better than all night. Yeah, around 2 months of age, she started to sleep 5 hours at the first stretch. So I started to get 4 hours straight sleep out of that 5 hours, and that gave me a little bit more ability to think beyond just my own health or sleep. And so then I was able to think about returning to work, and I wanted to return to work so that my parents were here at that time from India to support me. So around that time I wanted to start going back to work, so that when they're not here is when I take the rest of my leave. So that's how I went back to work at the end of third month. And then I took another 1 month when my parents went back to India, and my in-laws as well went back to India. So that was around the 8th month of my daughter's life, and I used that month to really get my home ready for a toddler, like somebody who's very mobile, because up until 8th month they're just very cute sitting in one place. My condo had like baseboard heaters and things like that, which is not safe for a baby. So I did some minor renovation to install a ceiling fan instead of baseboard heaters and floor fans. Things like putting a baby gate around the fireplace, putting a baby gate in the fence in the backyard, installing shelves high up so that she cannot reach them. Those kind of changes is what I spent a decent amount of my time during the maternity leave, and also getting ready for life without my parents' support here.
Yeah, I mean, when kids start walking, right, at first they're pretty slow, and all of a sudden, before you know it, they're getting into everything, right? So it's like things that you didn't even think they would be interested in, and now you have to start blocking those out.
Exactly. Yeah, my daughter was particularly interested in finding pieces of paper and putting it into the baseboard, which is very dangerous because it can create fire. So,
Yeah, and those are probably some little piece of paper you probably can't even see,
yeah,
right? I remember my kids would pick things up, and I'm like, I don't see anything, but they were able to find it.
find them. Yeah. Exactly. Around the same time as well, I found that I had a nanny at that point for childcare and was going well. So I used that leave as well to figure out alternatives to childcare as well. So that was a very, very busy time, I think, the first year of my daughter's life.
Yeah. How did you go about finding your nanny?
So overall, the childcare process has been a journey. We started off with the nanny because I had seen a lot of my Indian friends because I would like to understand how they are operating as well, and they all had a nanny, and the nanny had additional responsibilities like cooking and cleaning and all that. And I think reflecting back, I mean that profile works really well when you already have grandparents in the house that are playing with the kid, and the nanny is just doing some cooking and also like augmenting that time to watch the kid here and there. In our case, our parents were not living with us. They were visiting and they were here, but they were not living with us. And so the nanny's responsibility was to play with the baby, take out for walks and parks. And I found that the first nanny had some health issues after she joined, which would put me at risk that, with such severe health issues, I'm not sure you should be even by yourself here, firstly. And on top of that, to be with a baby that's this little. And that time my daughter was 2 months old. So then we let go of her within a month, and then we found somebody else who could work with us. And she stayed with us from the age of 3 months to 8 months. Initially, again, it was okay for the nanny to not interact too much with the baby because the baby's little, sleeping most of the time. But as my daughter started to grow up, she wasn't showing happiness towards this person. She was complaining and she would try to talk, and the nanny would ignore her, be on the phone, and things like that. And some days, because we were working from home, this was still COVID time, like people are just still coming back to work. And so she would just show up at 10 instead of 9 a.m. That would throw off my plans. I'm a manager, I have to get on a meeting. And so I didn't feel like she respected my time much. Plus, also, we live in a condo and it gets really crowded with one other person at home all the time with a nanny situation. And so at that 8 months, we had a family discussion and we realized we don't want to rely too much on a nanny or single point of failure, because if there's just one person who can come home, that person has to help us with some chores, that person has to watch the baby. And if they don't show up, then we're really, really, out of options. And that's when I realized how vulnerable I was being a parent. But to answer your question, how did we find those nannies? Like, we found them through local mom groups. And so this is something that I have found a lot of value from, is to join the local mom groups. There are resources for finding nannies, there are resources for getting recommendations of different nannies, but then there's also resources for asking questions about, hey, where do I take my kid if my daycare is closed, or do you recommend getting the Great America membership or not, and things like that. So there are a lot of other parenting topics that are discussed.
We do. We definitely have that. The Great America season pass. Man, it's great.
Exactly,
I
right?
just
Yeah.
had to throw that in there.
Exactly, right? Yeah. So, but you need to know, like, from parents, like, which one is the better one. Should I do this versus the other membership? At what age group is what better? Or recommendations for places to go under 1 hour, or where can I see fall colors with my kid, or pumpkin patch recommendations and stuff like that. So it's been wonderful resource even to find like mothers helpers and stuff like that. But when I had that nanny situation, and I found both nannies through recommendations, like word of mouth, somebody who knew us said they were great, and then we didn't feel that was our experience. So then I lost faith in the nanny process. I felt like relying on that one person, they need to interact with the kid. So then I decided I will, diversify my funds for my childcare differently. So I ended up finding a home-based daycare for my child, which I felt was a little bit safer environment than a big daycare where there's exposure to sickness. Then I will use the remaining funds that will be saved from the process in getting a mother's helper, because we had a lot of baby bottles to wash. So part of the nanny's job was to wash baby bottles. Not exactly do cooking and stuff, but wash baby bottles and stuff. So then I had a mother's helper who would do more than just that, like even, do light laundry and dishes couple of almost every day. And then that kind of, and then also I'll have me some funds left over for backup babysitting in case my daughter is sick and can't go to school, and I'm watching her all day and she's feeling better, like not daycare, and she's feeling a little better, but she can't go back before the 24-hour observation. I can hire somebody for that, or I can hire somebody over the weekend when she's healthy so I can then catch up on work. So something like that, where I can find a balance rather than putting all my eggs in one basket.
Right, right. And then you have more options that way, right? So right now, is your daughter still at that home-based daycare, or do you have her at a different?
No, she graduated. Yeah. So that was also a very fun ride. Like, she was at a home based daycare for about 5 months, and that home based daycare itself shut down for different reasons. And then she moved to another home based daycare. Then she was there for a year, almost a year and a half. Then she graduated because she grew up to be a 3 year old, and then she's now in a preschool. But home based daycare systems felt a little bit less scary than sending a very small baby to a full childcare center.
Definitely. Wow, you weren't kidding. That's a journey going from, because I definitely remember I had my kid in a preschool. Suddenly the preschool shut down, and then we had to immediately scramble to find another one. And I know that feeling where you're just like, oh gosh, juggling between work and trying to look at different places for your child.
Yes.
How is it looking for a preschool? Is there a wait list over there? Is it high demand?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. Like there are two preschools that we looked at, and one of them had a wait list and a requirement that my daughter is completely potty trained. And we were not so sure, so we also waitlisted her in another one which did not have that requirement, and they would help with potty training. So all of this together, she's now completely potty trained, so she'll be ready to go to the pre-K at that school which has the requirement that she's potty trained. But yeah, the wait list is long for the one that requires potty training. It's called Stratford, which is a very popular private school here. But the wait list there is very long. So we enrolled her when she was born. Enrolled her in the sense like waitlisted her when she was born. That we just letting you know right now that she's going to be there. Like not when she was born, like 4 or 5 months old. But yeah, very early in her life, so that we have a place to go for her. Like it's not like we're scrambling last minute. But yeah, even childcare journey has not been easy. Like when my daughter went to the first home-based daycare, she was fine until the month of November. Until her first birthday. But then as she grew close to her first birthday, she started having sickness, and there was a week I think in where the daycare person closed the daycare for a week. Which is a paid holiday for her. And during this time, I think all the parents traveled and stuff like that. When all came back, it was just three kids in the daycare, but still we all got COVID in that time, which was much later than others. Like we all got COVID towards the end of the whole COVID cycles, but we all got COVID, and again another 3 weeks of leave at work and all of those things. And then going into it, I think her system kind of weakened. She had multiple ear infections, needing a surgery early the following year. At the age of I think 14 months, she had undergone on a ear surgery for putting tubes in her ear. Then right after that, there were major reorgs at work, which was very, very, it didn't have a good impact on me. And so it felt like for lack of a better word, a shit show that went on from the time my parents left till the time, for almost a year. It felt like it was just not, the daycare shut down, then there was sickness, then another daycare, then ear surgery. There was almost a year period where I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. I'm barely surviving.
Right. Like everything just nonstop, right?
Yeah,
One thing after the other. When you're like, okay, now I have time to breathe. Now it's like another thing,
correct.
right? And it's just everything combined in that
Exactly.
1 year. Oh
Exactly.
my
So it
gosh.
was exhausting. And at that point, I think I really lost my ability to do my own self care. I think my self care habits that I developed all up until the time she was born, I haven't been able to, in fact, even now, I haven't been able to bring it back in fully because I think that ability just went away. Felt like I was in a survival mode for a long time.
Yeah, you're just trying to get through day to day, right? I
Exactly.
remember when my kids were all in the, daycare, preschool age, it was like we were always sick. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I think this is my life now. We're just going to be sick forever. And it's like, as you know, you can't take time off work every time you're sick, right? Because otherwise I'm going to take the whole year off. So
Exactly.
then it was like trying to work, but also trying to manage your health and your kids' health. So every day it was just like, okay, each day, good,
One day.
check off. I
Yeah.
got that. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. One day at a time, right? Just
Yeah.
so everyone is feeling better now, healthier.
Yes, yes. My daughter's ear surgery went
Oh,
well.
good.
That reduced the peak of her ear infections and the impact, like the painfulness of the ear infections. She started to feel better. And I think the work situation continued to be difficult for some more time. And I found myself finally taking, I think last year, January, February, the work pressure continued, of course, but my daughter was definitely getting better. Sleep was getting better and all of those things. But I found myself feeling like extremely, extremely anxious, waking up in the middle of the night for several days, several days in a row, and just without a reason crying and feeling sad and depressed. And so then I actually ended up triggering an FMLA break, which is a mental health break. I visited a functional medicine doctor and looked at what is missing in my blood work. Like, am I low on magnesium? Do I need more iron? What are the things that are missing in my blood work? What supplements am I doing to reduce the inflammation in my body? My cortisol levels came really high. So starting like a supplementation plan, like even if it's like the right vitamins, the right probiotics, those type of things. Seeking a lot of therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, which is a type of therapy meant to bring you skills for coping with distress tolerance and emotional regulation, taking a lot of long walks and those type of things. And also that's when I realized that it was the environment that was toxic and not great for me. So then I switched jobs in July of this year, and things have been going much better now, I think, and starting to find that footing again. But I think when so much all happens at the same time, it takes a toll on you, and it shows up in different ways, and it was a difficult time. But I think the good part about that piece, the mental health break, was that it was very, very helpful for me to build a lot of resources within my own self, to find resilience, to find gratitude for what is there, identifying where my power comes from. Where do I lose my power? What circumstances when do I lose my power? What circumstances where I feel empowered? Having that understanding. It was a very brief break. I think I recovered pretty fast. I built a team of an executive coach, a dialectical behavioral therapy coach, which is mostly focused on distress tolerance, a regular therapist for weekly check-in and having that point of contact, and a functional medicine doctor to monitor the hormone levels and to see whether the cortisol is going up again or not, and what else could be affecting. Like, is it diet that's affecting? Is it sleep that's affecting it? What could be going on? So, and then starting like a yoga routine, starting to bring back all the pieces of health and wellness back into one by one.
That's such a tough time, but I'm so glad that you took that time. You have the tools now for you to handle these things. Like, it's so important that you did that, because I think so many of us were just like, it'll pass, right? It'll pass. And then, like you said, it manifests in so many different ways that sometimes when we actually do something about it, it's too late. So it's so good that you were
Yeah.
able to recognize and say, hey, I'm going to take myself out of this and have the right tools and resources to support me through it, so you can deal with other things in the future as well and be a better, healthier you.
Right. Exactly.
Good on you for doing that. I think that's really important for everyone that's listening. We should take a pause and say, hey, what can we do for ourselves right now? Are we doing the best things for ourselves? Because so many times, especially being a parent, being a manager, so many times we prioritize our team, our kids, our family over ourselves.
Yes, exactly. And there's a concept of a sabbatical in many places. Like, when you've been working for X years, a sabbatical is given. Intel used to give that because, there is definitely that rut. Like, you get into a rut of things, you get attached to the golden handcuffs, you don't think clearly, you don't think big picture, you don't ask what you really want to do. Of course, now with the way the job market is, that's gone. But I do think of that time as more of a sabbatical. Like, I took a step back. I, asked myself, what do I want? I really asked what would support me for the next X years of my work life and what are my goals from there, and things like that. And so I think of that time as a more of a career break, mental health break, but a very short one. It was actually just 3 months, and that gave me enough of clarity to think about what do I need to think about as I go into my next gig. And this will not going to be the first time I give myself the break. I will not take FML in the future, but because that felt like urgently necessary to do. But in the future, I'll be more mindful. I'll ask myself how I'm feeling and take a more proactive break.
Listening to your body more so you're not built up to that point.
Exactly.
Being able to handle it before it gets to that.
Right.
So when you went back to work, was there a mother's room at work?
So when I went back to work after the baby, it was all still work from home because my daughter was born in November 2021 and we were not back in session yet. So luckily I was working from home and I was able to take a breastfeeding break here and there. But also I think that's one thing that it would be good to be open about it here, right? Like, breastfeeding is not for everybody. So for me, what happened was I have a condition called hypothyroidism, which affects milk supply, and that can create more pressure on the baby to find food if it's just based on the mother's milk. So my daughter was losing weight actually in the first couple of weeks of her life. She's supposed to be starting to gain weight back, but she was not gaining as fast as she should have, and it was mostly my guilt or that I should be breastfeeding her that was keeping her that way. And when I took myself out of the equation and said, okay, forget about me, what is right for the baby, then it was obvious that she just needed nutrition. It doesn't matter from where it came. And so we switched to formula. She started gaining weight really well. Her sleep became better because when you gain weight, your body is able to regulate sleep better. And so many things started to fall in place that it became obvious that breastfeeding was not my way to connect with my daughter at all. There was a grieving process to it, but then I realized if I take myself out of the equation, it's good. And it was such a big process for me because hospitals are liable to tell mothers that you're supposed to breastfeed. If the hospitals are not pushed to that limit where they have to be liable and say such things, it wouldn't be something that I would feel the pressure for. For example, I was a first time mom. I didn't have much friends who had shared about this stuff. So I think looking back, if I could give myself one advice, I'd be like, don't kill yourself over breastfeeding. If it happens, great. If it doesn't, no big deal. Be ready for it. And recently I had a call with a friend. She had a baby at 45 and she was like, my breast milk is not great. I have hypothyroidism as well. And I was like, yeah, just kill it. Go and give your baby the formula and your body will adjust automatically. And so that's the thing that a lot of mothers are pushed, especially first time mothers are pushed and they don't understand. And it's just a liability for the hospital. They have to say that. They're asked to do that. No hospital worker or healthcare worker or a doctor can come and tell you it's okay. It's only friends who can tell you because they're not under liability. So I try to make that very, very clear now. Most of my my girlfriends who might be having a baby that like, dude, don't kill yourself about it. If it happens, it's great, but if it doesn't, it's not a big deal. So going back to work for me with the stress as well, my breast milk even went down, my milk supply even went down. So my daughter was actually mostly formula fed, and that enabled my parents to care for her, my husband to care for her, not just me. That took away the nighttime dependence. And because she was so full from the formula, she would sleep through the night, and she started sleeping more and more, longer and longer hours at night because of that. So I think overall formula worked for my kid. I know that all kids are not the same. Some kids will have digestive distress because of formula, but my daughter luckily didn't have that.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that because I think a lot of times as mothers, we're very hard on ourselves, like, because that's just how, like you said, how the doctors, how society tells us, right? We need to breastfeed our kids. And then for me, I know it took a while for it to come in, and they were like, you should supplement with formula. And at first I was like, no, I can't do that. Everybody else is breastfeeding. But then, like you said, when I think about just for the health of my baby, I'm like, no, that's the right thing to do for my baby. And it wasn't,
Yeah.
it's not like my kids are suffering now. They're great. It's not a thing, but it's such a thing that we stress ourselves out over. I'm so glad you mentioned it because all the moms do need to hear that it's not the end of the world. In fact, like you said, sometimes it's better for everyone, it's just what works for every family.
Yeah, exactly.
That brought back so many memories when I was just so stressed. And then it's like, you take a step back and you're just like, why? Why am I putting so much pressure on myself for that?
Yeah.
And so how has your work life changed since you became a parent?
There is definitely limitations, I think, on the time that I didn't fully grasp before having a baby. And so before having a baby, you have, so to speak, a lot more flexibility with your time, right? You can work late into the night, you can work early in the mornings. Like when I was an IC, individual contributor, I would wake up at like 6:30, and 6:30 to 7:30 was my focus hours. In fact, 6:30 to 9:30 sometimes, because Bay Area chatter begins around 10 o'clock. And then I would have a lot of 4 hours of like deep work done by then, and then I could start my day. But here I know my daughter is gonna, the minute I take a breath, my daughter's awake over there in the other room. She knows somehow.
They know.
So even getting a workout in the morning is, like, you have to be lucky that they're continuously sleeping. Then, once they leave home for school, you're already exhausted from that first shift, and then you get barely like 8 hours or 9 hours of your day, and then you have the second shift, which is another 4 hours in the evening, and then all you have time is like maybe enough to clean up and get the house ready for the next day and get to bed. So time is very limited. I work in the field of AI/ML, and as you know, like, so many things are coming up, and the literature or the kind of amount of work that one can do in this area is like unlimited. I can spend a lot of my time being a knowledge worker, which is the right term to use. There's no upper limit of how much time I can spend on learning beyond what I need to get done for my job. And that's kind of helps with my job too. It's not like it doesn't help. It's a part of my job to be updated with what's happening in the industry and learn about it, read papers. So those pieces are not possible to do as much anymore after becoming a parent. And so I think that's the very first thing. The second part is also like being able to handle stress is very different, right? Like when you are by yourself and you don't have a kid, you're tired, you're exhausted, work got too busy, like take a break, go to maybe a Napa Valley for an overnight getaway. It's still relaxing. But here, if I'm sitting in a restaurant with my daughter, even to go out and eat a meal, like she's throwing food around, she's throwing the plate, she's getting into trouble, that is also not relaxing. So there is all the things that I used to do that made me happy and relaxed are the same things that create a lot of stress in me because of my daughter being a little kid and just being who she is. So those things are also not accessible. So overall work life has really changed, and it requires a lot of expectation setting to say this is all you have and this is all you can get done. Like, just deal with that. Don't ask for too much from your time,
and don't push yourself overboard to try to meet those expectations, because like you said, then that takes a toll on you.
Exactly.
Since you mentioned, like, some of the things that you enjoyed before is less as relaxing now, have you found some new things that you enjoy doing that help you unwind or relax?
Yeah, I think I'm still in the search of it. I don't think I've arrived at it yet. It's still an ongoing process, I think, to understand what brings joy to me as a mom now. One thing that's fun is on Saturday mornings, me and my husband will grab a bunch of weights and do some weight training together. He's much more dedicated than me about weight training, but I really like it to weight train with him. And my daughter will watch us and make fun of us or give us counts. Like she'll give counts in random orders, or she'll count very fast just to mess with us. So it's kind of really fun time. So that's like a family fun has become really fun. Overnight getaways with my daughter are fun now. So it has really changed. The meaning of fun has changed a lot. I'm still in the process of identifying what really brings me joy. Like I used to do art journaling, which is get a prompt and draw something based on the prompt. For example, you could say things like I wish, and you could draw something and then write a quick note below. And so you could say I wish I could read my manager's mind, for example, right? So then that becomes like you could just put a picture of yourself feeling sad, and then you could say I wish I could read my manager's mind. So that's like a quick art journaling. So you're expressing through prompts and diagrams. And Pinterest has been a big inspiration for that for me. So Pinterest has a lot of different prompts. Like this one called Happiness Is. There's another one called Mama Loves, and so they're like good ways to find. So outdoor time in nature is always something that I love. Like just being outside in nature, among redwood trees especially, is just very healing. Saturday morning farmers market with my kid, trying all the samples, getting a coffee is really relaxing. So those are some of the things that we still tend to add, keep in our weekends. But yeah, it's a very different set of things that I like to do now than I used to like to do before.
Yeah, I love that how it's also shifted and included your daughter and stuff, but figuring out ways to relax with her and do things that you both enjoy. That's really neat. And I bet you if I talk to you a year later, you'll probably have evolved into other activities. Like you said, it always keeps changing. I know for myself too, what I enjoyed doing a couple years ago is going to be different than now because my kids are a little bit older now, so I could do different things with them than before. They don't necessarily want to go to the park anymore, but they want to go to like the movies or something. So our activities shift, but
Yeah.
it's still with each other. So, what has been your biggest struggle or challenge with being a parent in tech?
Yeah, I think it's especially as a manager who meets people all day and then a mom who has to be with the kids all evening or early mornings. It's the overstimulation from people interaction. So if I'm on 10 Zoom calls throughout the day, 10 or 15 Zoom calls, and then I'm on parent duty. So emotion regulation and distress tolerance are the most two of the things that I'm struggle with on an ongoing basis, and that's the coaching I'm taking as well to build my ability to cope with them better. But there are some things I know, like being indoors and my daughter being indoors and constantly whining or complaining, it causes the emotional distress. So I can feel it now. Like I've become much more capable, like, oh, it's coming on. Like I'm feeling the distress in my body. There's also this app called Stress Monitor if you have an iPhone and connects with your Apple Watch, that looks at your heart rate variability and gives you an alert when you're experiencing stress in your body, which has also been very valuable because that tells me, okay, take a deep breath. Take two deep breaths in and leave a breath out through your mouth. And so that really also relaxes the body instantly. But those are the main two things because everybody's overwhelmed. Sleep is up and down. My daughter's still little, so she's starting to drop her nap as she's getting close to 3.5. But school still gives her 2 hours nap, so that really pushes her bedtime out and wake up early. And when she's up and early, she gets bored. She's like, okay, play with me, do this and do that. And so that also adds a little bit more overwhelm. And the work also as a manager is really, really overwhelming. I manage now 10 people. And so it's wonderful. I love the team, but it's also, there's a whole other level of being emotionally available to your team, but also managing all the other alignment with the stakeholders and the senior leadership. And it's a lot of emotional labor, I would say. And then at home also is a lot of emotional labor. So we have only one kid, so the kids are not playing with each other. It's like I'm the show. If there are two kids, then they play with each other maybe over time, and then but in my case it's just one kid, so it's just we are the show. There's no other kids around. So that's been the biggest struggle, I think, being overstimulated a lot.
And I think to your point of the emotional labor, it's also an aspect of like not carrying it home and not, I think that was something I had to figure out to not take all of the stuff that happened at work and how to compartmentalize that so I didn't bring it home. I could see that my kids would be able to see in the times I did bring it home. They could tell. Even when they're little, they see it. And I was like, wow,
Yes.
they're watching us at all times, even if you think they're not paying attention.
Exactly. And I would say that most days I'm okay, I'm getting better at this, but there are some days which are really tough at work, and then they would bleed into the evenings where I am carrying that stress home. So I have made a decision that I'm going to be kind at work, and I'm going to be very extremely aware of the kind of impression I'm making on the people around me. Like, not impression, but like, are they leaving home more stressed out because of me or not? In some cases are now unavoidable, like being a manager I have to hold people accountable and those type of things, but there's a way to do that, as opposed to like creating psychological safety, creating a sense of that I can go home and be with my kids, and it's not because of my manager. Like if I'm not with my kids, it's because of my own things. Like I want to be that person, a manager, that kind of stakeholder, that kind of partner to other managers and other leads in the company. So I'm not the cause of creating that. Nobody that I come in touch with, unless I can really not help it, goes home stressed out because of me.
I think that's really neat that, you're so intentional about that because I think a lot of people don't think about the effects of that. So it's really, really cool that you're very thoughtful about that.
Yes.
And so I was curious, on the flip side, what would you say is the biggest benefit of being a parent in tech?
I think, in some ways, the Bay Area tech scene is very stressful. I would say overall tech is not the same, but Bay Area tech also pays well, but also is a little stressful. But as a mom, it's one of the most flexible work situations. If you have a kid that's sick and you have somebody else who can watch them for a few hours, you can get work done if you're working from home. If you have, a dentist appointment, it doesn't mean that you can't go to the dentist appointment, then complete your work later in the night. And at least in the Bay Area, I think the work life balance, in terms of, like, I'm not saying that it's, that you don't work hard, but things like the holidays, right? You don't have to work on the holidays, but if I'm at McDonald's and I'm flipping burgers, I have to be there. And similarly, like when the fire is going on, the firefighters have to be there. They can't say I need flexibility for my this or that. And similarly, doctors, like during COVID, they couldn't say sorry, I need to have my flexible hours, right? But we have that with tech, so there's more flexibility. My sister was in hardware engineering before, and then she moved to being a software engineer, and that alone gave her a lot more flexibility. She didn't have to be in there working late into the night, testing on devices, setting up the machines, and all that. She could be home, working from home, and like writing coding late into the night if she wanted to. So that also has given her flexibility as a single mom. Now she has a kid and she's a single mom now. She went through the IVF route to have a kid, so that gives her that flexibility as well, to be a parent and also be at home. So from that perspective, I would say that's the biggest benefit of being in a tech job. And the second one is, I think, is the exposure to so many smart people. It's the only place where I was once having a discussion with the conductor on the Caltrain about the machine learning courses he was taking on weekends. And my Uber driver is discussing, I'm training a model using my new NVIDIA processor on my MacBook. You don't have those conversations anywhere else in the world. So I find myself extremely lucky to be surrounded with so many smart people everywhere I go. So that's incredibly valuable, because I just get smarter being around all these smart people.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, I'm always like fascinated by all the smart people I meet in different jobs, different venues, just all the different connections. So, what would you say would be your biggest struggle or challenge with your daughter's current age of 3 years old?
3 years is a very cute age. At the same time, it's also the age where they start to understand rules and expectations and natural consequences, and also boundaries. Up until the 2 years, they're mostly like open to feedback and listening to what you say. But as they get 3 years and above, they start being like little leaders. So really figuring out how to set the right boundaries, set the right expectations, give a very clear message is some of the things that I'm learning, both at work and at home. Because I think if there's any ounce of you that can be pushed, any boundary that is a little loose, the kids pick up on it very, very fast. And now it's making me realize, oh, if kids pick up on it, adults can as well. So really finding that balance between being a parent who wants cooperation with your daughter, but at the same time, she needs to know you're the leader, right? Like finding that balance is very hard. So I'm a part of this parenting group called Your Parenting Mojo. It's very similar to Good Insight by Dr. Becky. It's one of those like parenting groups, and they have different modules on parenting. The main motto behind this group is parenting beyond power, like really understanding the child psychology and working and creating a cooperative environment at home. It definitely takes a lot of work. Sometimes it's not possible, right? But for example, if the kid is running out in the street, there's no chance for like cooperative parenting. You can't be cooperative. You just have to pick them up and keep them safe. I would really love to build a cooperative environment with my daughters, so that when she's a teenager, I'm more like a mentor that she looks up to. At the same time, she also understands that this is the relationship. Like, I am your mom, I'm not your friend. You have to understand the rules and you have to follow the rules that I have set together, even though you don't like them. At the same time, I'm like your mentor. I understand what you're going through. I'm not going to invalidate your feelings. So, like, striking that balance of being in charge, but also not really in charge is really, really hard. And it's the same thing at work, right? I don't really like being in charge per se, but I like to take care of the people whom I'm in charge for, right? Whom I'm responsible for. But then at the same time, it shouldn't be like, oh yeah, this is a soft leader. Like, I can do whatever I want. That shouldn't be the message that goes out. So finding that balance is the hardest part, and it's the same at work for me as well. So there is one thing I'm trying is to build processes and systems that set up everybody for success, and then hopefully the outcomes continue. But there may be some situations where it may be required for me to like come down hard and just set the right expectations. So that has been my biggest learning lesson so far with a 3-year-old so far.
And as she grows older, that balance is also going to be shifting, evolving. I see how I talk to my 14-year-old versus my 9-year-old. It's the exact same as what you said. I want to make sure they know I'm in charge, but also I'm your mom, but I'm also not the dictator. I also want to hear your opinion and all of that. But then the way we say things will shift as they grow older too, and our reasoning, how we explain it to them, will shift too.
Yes.
And I think for me, my challenge is, okay, as my kids get older, how do I make sure I can continue that with them and have them feel comfortable enough to tell me things, to open up to me? Because I see so many teenagers, they just kind of bottle things up. They don't want to tell their parents anything. So I think that shifts as they get older as well, while we still want to keep that balance for sure.
Exactly.
So this is definitely something we're working through, but what works for you for a work-life balance?
I think about the big pieces, the big rocks. I think day to day is still going to be, when you start looking at the minutia, you will not get a sense of what work life balance means to you. But you have to look at the bigger picture and say that, was I able to continue life and do all the things that I needed to do in my life while having a job? Which aspects could I do, and which aspect did I not, and how much can I blame my job for it? Right? Like, how much can I? So it becomes easy to just blame your job. Like, because of my job, I can't go for my hikes. Like, but no, really, it's because your toddler won't go for a hike. Don't joke. Like, if your toddler would go for a hike and sit in the stroller, you would be doing a lot of hikes, even though you have a full time job. So very important to look at what are the things that matter to you, in that makes you feel like life is meaningful and fun, and what is missing today, and which of them are because of your job and which of them are because of your circumstances. And so from that perspective, I'm pretty happy with work life, although there are days where it's like a 12-hour day, 10-hour day, there's an issue going on, it's like go go go. There are those days, and being in tech, the fast paced environment makes it more days like that than otherwise. But the main thing to remember is that, yeah, am I able to shut off my computer between 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. and I need to be with my daughter? Yes. Am I able to go for a brunch on the weekend with her that I want to do? Yes, I'm able to. Am I working on the weekends? No. Are you getting your Thanksgiving, New Year's time, the time with your family really there? Yes. When you're getting stressed out, are you able to take a day off and relax? Like, those are questions that I'm looking for my true north when I look at work life balance, because other things take time. Like, they take time, and they take your commitment. For example, if I want to get better at piano, I need to take out 2 minutes to practice. If I want to get better at my art journaling, I need to take out 2 minutes. It doesn't take long, and those things. So it's like, with a full-time job, there are a lot of things one can do to give that sense, but we don't do it. And so that is the honesty that I have come to realize, that, like, no, I could achieve work-life balance if I really, really made that my focus, as opposed to arbitrary goals like, I need to get promoted by this time, or I need to get this kind of paycheck by this time. Those are arbitrary goals that can get a sense of, like, no, I'm not there yet. They get a sense of, I'm sacrificing this to do that, and this is not happening. But if you set your goal that, okay, my goal is to enjoy work life, my goal is to bring joy into my work, my goal is to keep my job and enjoy my job, that's it. Other things can happen, but these are the two things that are my top focus. Then automatically it becomes very obvious what is causing you a lack of work life balance. Is it you or the job?
Yeah, that's such an interesting way to put it, because when you have those goals, then the other things will fall into place, right? Naturally fall into place, instead of being focused on one specific thing. And I think a lot of times we do get focused on that one, like, oh my gosh, I had to work 12 hours that day. And then you just get really focused on that, like, oh man, but then keeping an eye on the bigger picture is what it sounds
Right,
like.
right.
So the last thing I like to ask is just, what's something you would tell someone who's planning to have kids, or something you wish you knew before you became a parent?
There's no way to know what it's like when you're a parent. There's no way to know the deprivation in the early months, the anxiety of the child's life, how they're eating and all those things. There's no way to put a number on it. So there's absolutely no way to prepare in terms of mentally. There's absolutely no way to prepare mentally. There would have been no visualization exercise that would have helped me. I tried about all type of things I could visualize my life be, but I had my kids very late in my life. My daughter was born when I was 39 years old, and so I had lived a lot of my life without a child. So the visualization of what a life with a child would look like, it was not in my visual horizon at all, not in the visualization capacity for my brain to even think about. So I prepared a lot, like, yeah, went to a lot of checklists, got my house ready, did all the right renovations before the baby arrived, arranged for my parents condo when they have a place to stay when they come. I was organized to get all the classes going and clarify meal planning and all kind of things, like get organized. You can do everything you to get organized, and I was as organized as I could have gotten. I don't think I could have gotten more, but there's no way to know what will happen to your brain, to your body, to your day-to-day life, and how that will impact you after the baby. So give yourself 3 years to 4 years to see what it settles like, and what settles into, and who is this person after the baby, because it won't be the same person that had the baby. And then once you're beyond that, at 3 years or 4 years of age, you can ask that question, like, who am I now? Because now you have lots of information to know what life is looking like, and then you can build that identity again.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. We could read all the books, prepare as much as we can, but There are going to be things that happen that are just, you just never would have thought, right? Like you were talking about, breastfeeding, just even that, I read about, okay, how the right way to breastfeed, all of that, but I didn't think about, oh, what if my milk doesn't come in? Then what do I do? It just didn't even occur to me, Then I'm scrambling like, oh, what am I supposed to do? And then learning through the experience at that moment, but I hadn't read anything about it, hadn't talked to it. I didn't even think to ask people about it. I just thought, okay, you just feed them and everything's fine. Everybody gets milk. What do you mean mine doesn't come in? It just didn't even occur to me at that time until after I experienced it. Then you realize, oh, okay.
Yes, yes. So yeah, so that is one thing. And the second thing that I would really say is to really think through single point of failure. Like, do not have a single point of failure in your support or village. Like, think about a babysitter and another babysitter that arrives when the first babysitter may not show up or have some gaps. Build that village around you of people who can support you in different ways. Like, don't just think about a mother's helper who can come maybe more times a week, but think about a week, monthly cleaner for more deeper cleaning. And like, don't just have one single point of failure there. You may want to order groceries, but also like have some meal delivery service as opposed to cooking only. Like, so in every single dimension, think about moving away from a single point of failure. So that gives you a lot more flexibility to react when things go wrong. I built my roster of babysitters when my parents left to India and my daughter started getting sick at the new daycare. So that's when I knew I need to really think through my care system differently. So now I have like a whole table. Look, if my daughter gets sick on Monday, this is my babysitter. If my daughter gets sick on Tuesday, this is. So building that network, giving them recurring hours, even when their baby's not sick, to build that relationship. So I don't rely on one thing ever now. And the same thing is now coming true with my jobs as well. Like, I don't want to ever rely only on one job, because that also means now you're putting all eggs in one basket to kind of get through parenting. God knows what parenting will throw at you. So for me, financial independence has become an important part. Not that I don't want to do my job, I don't want to work. I love working and I'm a workaholic if at all. But having that as a reliance that I need to do this job to earn my salary, it just makes me really depressed. Is what I've come to realize, that I want to be able to work because I enjoy working and I enjoy learning from the people that I'm around. So even there, I don't want a single point of failure. I have been dabbling in teaching. I've also been an interview coach for AIML. But when my parents were not living in the condo that we purchased for them, I posted on Airbnb. So I was an Airbnb host. I got super host for hosting 2 years in a row. It was a good, successful gig. So I'm also thinking about developing side hustles that allow me to not have all eggs in one basket financially.
Right. That's so smart. Just having those other options should anything happen. And then that way your mindset is also different when you're approaching work and different things, because you have other options available.
Yeah.
That's really smart. Now I'm going to go look and see, okay, do I have childcare options if I need it? What do I have? I love your idea of having all of those, backups just in case, because you just never know.
Right.
But awesome. Thank you, Shivani, for talking to me today. It was really, really awesome hearing your story and hearing all your tips.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me and speaking with me today.
Of course. And I hope you have a great weekend ahead. Take care. Thank you so much for joining us today on Parenthood Bites. We hope you found our episode informative and entertaining. If you're a parent in the tech world or know someone who is, we'd love to hear from you. Please reach out to us at chow@parenthoodbites.co, and we'll be thrilled to add your experiences to our interviews. That's chow, CHIAO, @parenthoodbites.co. And to our potential sponsors out there, if you're a business or know of one that would like to support and partner with our podcast, please don't hesitate to get in touch. You can also reach us at chow@parenthoodbites.co. Thank you once again for tuning in, and we wish you a fantastic rest of your week. Until next time, take care and stay curious.